Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Ahmadinejad warns Russia over sanction support. Egypt's renewed emergency law put to the test. And amid regional tension, Israel holds massive defense drill. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
نبدأ جولتنا من حيث انتقد الرئيس الإيراني محمود
Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad criticized Russia's latest stance against his country, describing it as unacceptable. Addressing a massive crowd in the city of Kerman, Ahmadinejad called on the Russian government to reconsider its position so that the Iranian people will not add Russia to the list of Tehran's historical enemies. Our correspondent in Iran, Muhammad Hassan al-Bahrani, has the details in the following report.
محمد حسن البحراني.
يبدو أن ملف إيران النووي قد دخل بالفعل مع.
It seems that Iran's nuclear file entered a new escalation phase. It also seems that the US-led efforts to expand international sanctions in Iran are behind this tone of escalation, which is echoed in Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's address to the residents of Kerman province.
أمام أهالي محافظة كرمان.
I tell Mr. Obama to abandon the policies of previous U.S. administrations. The Tehran Declaration brings a historic and major opportunity that must be seized upon, if justice is really what you want to achieve. I doubt the Iranian people will give you another opportunity. If you don't seize this opportunity, you must know that the Iranian nation will cut your road short.
If Iranians are used to attacks by their political leaders against the U.S. administration, they have not heard this tone of voice used against Russia. The Iranian president has sharply criticized the shift in Russia's position towards Iran.
Medvedev's latest stance has confused the Iranian people. They don't know whether Russia is still really their friend. It's normal to expect from our friendly neighbor to stand by us in this critical time. Your current policy is unacceptable and must be re-examined.
Iranian sources saw in Ahmadinejad's words a serious warning by Tehran directed at Moscow.
This is a clear Iranian warning against Russia. I believe that the latest Russian stance is due to a sense of weakness felt by Russia in the face of U.S. pressures. Anyhow, Russia needs Iran more than Iran needs it.
Amidst the strong Iranian warning directed at Russia, some are betting on a breakthrough in the Iranian nuclear crisis, which has started to ease up after the Tehran Declaration with Turkey and Brazil. However, with the new threats of sanctions looming on Iran, a political solution may not come that easily. Leading powers have threatened Iran with a first, a second, a third and now a fourth round of sanctions over its nuclear program and uranium enrichment. Meanwhile, Iranians are saying, even if you take a unified position against us, you will not get what you wish for, and we will continue to enrich uranium as long as you continue to do so. Mohammed Hassan al-Bahrani, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Manouchehr Mottaki has criticized Washington's response to the Tehran Declaration. Now, Mottaki was speaking at a joint news briefing with his Burundian counterpart in Tehran. Mottaki signaled out U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's remarks about the declaration and described him as misleading. Mottaki has called the Tehran Declaration an opportunity for confidence building.
They should change their path and turn from confrontation to cooperation. If they are really serious and they are after confidence building by all sides, well, I think that they should seize the opportunity. Two key countries in the international community, Brazil and Turkey, based on their own requests, of course, on their own requests.
Well, Poland has received the first line of U.S. Patriot missiles. Now, the anti-ballistic missiles are stationed in the northeastern town of Mosaic, 60 kilometers from the Russian border. The Polish Defense Minister Bogdan Klisz says the presence of the Patriot system means added security for his country. An additional 150 U.S. soldiers will be stationed in Mosaic to service the equipment. Russia has strongly condemned the deployment, and Moscow says that the presence of the anti-ballistic missiles in Poland will hurt its bilateral relations with Washington and will jeopardize the general security of the region. Now to the Middle East, where Israeli forces have attacked Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip, wounding 3 civilians. The 3 Palestinian workers were wounded when Israeli forces opened fire on them. This is the second such incident in the past 24 hours. Earlier, Israeli warplanes had attacked different points in the Gaza Strip, wounding at least 16 people, including several children. Medics say that some of the injured are in critical condition. Israel has recently carried out dozens of air raids targeting tunnels near crossings along the border. Besieged Gazans used the tunnels running under the Egyptian border to bring in food and fuel.
The maneuvers conducted by Israel culminated with sirens and Israelis heading to shelters in safe areas. The scenarios focused on rocket attacks launched from Lebanon, Syria, and Iran on Israel's strategic facilities and sites.
As air raid sirens wailed across Israel, the Home Front Command's military maneuvers reached their peak, and Israelis were asked to head to the shelters for 10 minutes as the hypothetical war is entering its 18th day.
We seek to avoid war, and the maneuvers are taking place for the 4th year and will also be conducted next year. We want to be ready in the domains in which we need to be ready.
Remarkably, Israel's predictions and probably its intelligence information believe that there is a likelihood that its strategic and sensitive facilities might be targeted by missiles that are more precise than those that were used during the Second Lebanon War. In the hypothetical war scenario, the Ministry of Defense was subjected to chemical missiles, which caused a large number of deaths and injuries and a heavy financial toll. In addition, the Ashdod port in the south and the Ramban hospital in Haifa were shelled.
We are going to have all the different branches of the army around Israel participate. The maneuvers include all types of exercises, including weapons of mass destruction and chemical weapons.
The exercises revealed one weak point: Israel's low level of preparedness to face a chemical or biological attack. Only 5% of Israelis have received gas masks, but their participation in the maneuvers was larger than that of previous years because of the fear that Israel might attack Iran, which could trigger a regional war in which the Home Front Command is placed on the front lines. Although Israel's attempts to reassure that the military maneuvers are routine and defensive, it is clear that it is basing its actions on intelligence information and could be sending a double message, inside and outside the country, that Israel is ready for any future war. Ziad Halabi, Al Arabiya, Tel Aviv.
Joining me now in the studio is Dr. Jonathan Spire, Senior Research Fellow at the Global Research and International Affairs Center in Herzliya. Dr. Spire, thanks for coming in this evening.
Good evening.
Hezbollah has mobilized its forces in southern Lebanon. They claim this is in response to Israel's civil defense drill that's taking place this week. Is that the real reason?
Well, I think that is the reason, yes. I mean, it's important to remember what this mobilization means as well, if we're trying to picture it. It doesn't mean that, armed Hezbollah fighters are now patrolling the streets of the villages of southern Lebanon or getting into position there. What it means is that because, Resolution 1701 prohibits Hezbollah from armed action underneath the Litani River, south of the Litani. So it means that fighters have probably been mobilized, members of Hezbollah have been mobilized and are reporting to particular areas of southern Lebanon. It's worth remembering also that South Lebanon is currently in the midst of municipal elections. So Hezbollah activists are in any case on the street campaigning for their own candidates in those areas. So this is, I think, part of a response to the civil defense drill. It doesn't mean that Hezbollah is getting ready for war or a fight or anything like that.
There was talk about 6 weeks ago that there might be a conflict in July, and Syria has for months been saying that Israel is planning to attack Syria. Why this war talk?
Well, there's been ongoing tension, of course, in a sense, since the end of the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. The fact of the matter is that in the last months, the issue of Syrian arming, or Syrian and Iranian arming of Hezbollah via the Syrian-Lebanese border has very much come to the fore. Israel has been trying to place that a little bit on the international agenda, specifically the issue of such weaponry as M600 missiles and Scuds, the President Peres talked about. So that, I think, has made the Syrians nervous. And that has led to some of the sort of atmosphere of tension that's been present in the last months. That a few months ago there was an exercise by Northern Command, and again the tensions rose, and now the civil defense exercise, tensions rising. It doesn't mean, though, that war is imminent. In a certain sense, I think many people feel some sort of renewed conflict is probably inevitable eventually in southern Lebanon, but that doesn't mean to say that it's necessarily imminent. There are various factors preventing it, in fact, I would say, from sparking off any time right now.
So for this reason, there is something which we must tell the Israelis, and there is something which we must not tell the Israelis. And be sure that what we must not tell the Israelis, I will not say it, and nobody will say it, and it will be a surprise in case of any future war, when any future war breaks out. Now, if we speak, I don't speak so that posters will be raised, posters will be hung for me. This is part of the war with the Israelis. Today there is psychological warfare. The Israelis are holding these maneuvers and broadcasting them to tell the Lebanese, be afraid of us. And we as well, we have things which we must say, and we must tell the Israelis, be afraid. And I'll end my speech by this issue. So for this reason, I'm going to say something. So, and when I say this, I'm not uncovering a new weapon. I'm reflecting a new will. If the war breaks out, and we do not want such a war, but we don't fear a war if it breaks out, and we believe that any new war, if it does break out, will change the face of a region, and Mrs. Clinton agrees with me in this. I said before, I want to add a point here, I said before that the Israeli home front is all vulnerable now, and we know everything about the Israeli home front. We know where we should target in the Israeli home front. We know the weak points and the strong points in the Israeli home front. We spoke about the fields, we spoke about the land, and we said that any airport targeted in Lebanon and any bridge, any harbor, any building targeted in Lebanon will be met with a similar attack in Israel, attacking an airport, bridge in Israel as well.
In Cairo, the area adjacent to the Egyptian parliament's headquarters has been calm. This news comes after Egyptian security forces forced angry workers from different private and public companies to suspend indefinitely a sit-in, which they have staged for months in front of the parliament. Egyptian security forces have forcibly removed hundreds of striking laborers from the sidewalks of the Egyptian parliament. The strikers were also warned against staging any future public rallies or protests against the government. The security measures have stirred angry reactions among political and human rights groups.
For the first time in months, the sidewalks of the Egyptian National Assembly and the Shura Council witnessed calm after Egyptian security forces removed angry workers, employees, and residents who have staged a series of sit-ins and strikes in the area. After issuing repeated warnings, security forces moved in and violently removed the strikers from the sidewalks of the parliament, ending months of angry sit-ins and protests. There was no official or government statement issued to justify the use of force by the security forces, who forcibly removed hundreds of strikers demanding their legitimate rights. Egyptian human rights groups strongly condemn the actions taken by the security forces, saying that the obstruction of traffic claim made against the strikers is invalid and that it comes within the framework of the country's emergency law, which was extended nearly 2 weeks ago.
Any strike or sit-in should be dealt with in accordance with Egyptian internal conflict laws. It should be resolved through mediation between the Ministry of Manpower and workers. It can be resolved in many ways other than the activation of the emergency law. This is an acceptable practice by those who are lobbying for their legitimate rights. Once again, it can be resolved in several ways other than the use of the emergency law. Even if these protests weren't authorized by the state, they didn't have to activate the emergency law to counter them.
Observers believe that the latest security escalation against the protesters who held a sit-in in front of the parliament has cast its shadow on the political equation in Egypt, especially as the country moves closer to presidential and parliamentary elections. It also sends several political messages, among them a message to the public reiterating that Egypt's political scene will remain in the hands of the security authorities. On the other hand, observers believe that the Egyptian public will continue to rally for its rights, whether they are political, economic, or social.
The Egyptian public in its recent protests can be listed under two categories. On one side, you have the intellectual or elite class, which is calling for higher principles, including political rights, freedom, and democracy. On the other side, you have the average citizen, who may revolt against anything that may threaten their way of living, including rent increases and the privatization of the public sector.
Without a doubt, the response of the Egyptian government to the striking workers has taken a different approach, which has not been seen since 2006. This has to do with the swift security crackdown on the striking workers who came out to lobby for their rights. In the past, the government had used dialogue in dealing with labor disputes, but without yielding to the workers' demands. Taking to the streets was a democratic gesture and a peaceful method to express an opinion, which the Egyptian government has seized on for a long time. However, with the government closing the only door to freedom of expression, this marks the end of that method. No one knows what the public rage will lead to in the absence of means to express concerns and demand rights. Norman Khalil, Al-Alam, Cairo.
ما زال أبناء الرافدين يعيشون حياة لا يحسدون عليها.
The people of the land of the two rivers still live unenviable lives. They are calling for the development that they were promised before the elections, when they were asked to be courageous and give up personal gains. Residents of the coastal region of Judaydat suffer from the bitter reality and are demanding the quick formation of the government. Bala al-Karab reports.
This poor house, it is complaining to its neighbor, that tall palace over there, about the devastation that it witnessed. As for its residents, their hearts are broken. Who can they complain to and express their needs? Is it to those who abandoned them right after the elections and became wolves that attack each other in their greed for positions of power?
We didn't get anything from these officials. We have no place to live and no work. Nothing has improved. We elected them, and now they are fighting for the seat. Just for the money, they don't care about the people.
We are renting. We don't have a home. Come inside and take a look. We have nothing. You see, this is proof. We don't own 1 inch of land. We have nothing.
The residents of the coastal region of Judaydat by the Najaf Sea do not own an inch of land in their country. The local government has not provided any mentionable services. Their neighborhoods are not much different, and the suffering goes on.
Our problem is that we've lived here for 35 years, 33 years. We live in rundown homes subsidized by the government. The government sold plots of land to developers, who in turn built houses and sold them to residents. Some of the residents bought plots of land from the developers and built houses. Since the 1970s, we have been living here in this rental house. We used to pay 5 Iraqi dinars during the former regime, but since 2003, we have been paying 25 dinars. They charge 300 to 500 dinars a year. From 2003 to 2010, they've taken 3 million dinars. We can't afford it. Where are we going to get this kind of money? We have paid some of the debt, but we still owe a lot. The Provincial Land and Property Administration promised to issue a deed. However, we have not received anything yet. We have a copy of the letter sent by the administration, saying that the file was sent to the Ministry of Municipalities.
An official from the Human Rights Committee from the Najaf al-Ashraf Provincial Council visited this region and offered limited assistance to these vulnerable families. But who can help these vulnerable residents?
Right now, the ball is in the court of the Provincial Council, which is the local government. It should hurry up and do whatever it can to meet the needs of these poor families, which are seeking to live a decent life.
I swear to God, we really hope that the officials would come to see this region and see for themselves. There's no electricity or a Department of Public Works like in other towns. We hope they come to the area and take a look firsthand.
A heated war between those who won in the parliamentary elections is still ongoing over positions in the Iraqi government, and the residents of this dilapidated building still live under the poverty line without any help or relief. Falah al-Krab, al-Furat, from the region by the Najaf Sea in the holy city of Najaf. Residents of the village of Sheikh Saad in East Jerusalem plan to submit a petition to the Israeli Supreme Court to hold the Israeli authorities accountable for setting up a military fence that restricts the activities of the residents. This comes despite their bad experience with the Israeli judicial system, which permitted the isolation of the village from Jerusalem with a dividing wall, while a deep valley and harsh topography already separates it from the West Bank. Ziad Halabi has the details.
At the entrance of the village of Sheikh Saad in East Jerusalem, you witness an absurd scene that is almost tragic. A traffic light was set up on the military fence, and a sign was placed to let people know that they are allowed to pass through when the light is green. However, the light is always red.
They put this traffic light here. What do I know? They put a red light here, so you're not allowed to cross. They say you can pass when the light is green, but it's always red. Always red.
I'll tell you what our reality is. Our reality is injustice, oppression, and humiliation. They don't let anybody pass through. Not even sick people are allowed to pass through, or dead people in order to be buried. It's impossible for us to get a burial certificate.
The story of this village is not only about the traffic light that does not change colors or condition. 3 months ago, Israel's Supreme Court decided to keep the village on the eastern side of the separation wall and stripped it from its natural surroundings, the neighboring village of Jabal al-Mukaber. But now it is stuck between the separation wall to the west and a deep valley to the east. The residents are not allowed to enter or exit the village through the military fence in their cars. Only pedestrians with blue Jerusalem identification cards are permitted to cross on foot, contradicting the Supreme Court's decision that stipulated that residents are allowed to enter and exit.
It's very difficult for everyone. My children are there and I can't see them. They live in the village of Mukaber. My grandson is in the village of Maqasid, and I can't even see him. I mean, we're not part of the western section, and we're not part of the eastern section.
About 3,000 people live in this besieged village. Half of them carry West Bank identification cards, and the other half carry Jerusalem's blue identification cards. They pay property taxes to Jerusalem's municipality. Since 2005, a quarter of the residents have fled the village due to its isolation by the wall and its suffocating economic and social situation. Even the workers at the electricity company are forced to walk to repair power grids in a village where life has been broken down for years. From the beginning of this report until its end, the traffic light has been red because it is completely forbidden to enter or exit this isolated island. This matter could summarize the essence of the Israeli settlement policy in Jerusalem. Ziad Halabi, Al-Arabiya, occupied Jerusalem.
Clashes and scuffles broke out in the neighborhood of Isawiya in Jerusalem between Israeli police forces and Palestinian residents after the municipality issued orders to demolish some homes. Eyewitnesses said that the demolitions began last night and residents were forced to leave their homes. A spokesman for the Israeli police said that the demolition was in compliance with the municipality's orders, meant to improve the facilities and the infrastructure of the neighborhood.
In between preventing them from enrolling at the Lebanese University's Faculty of Sciences and the high tuition cost of private universities, the right to an education crisis has been added to the numerous legal crises already facing the refugees. For many of them, the right to higher education is not a right they are accorded. The report by Doreen Al-Helwe sheds light on the issue.
Mahmoud stands in front of the building of the Faculty of Engineering, pondering his future, which could have been different had he not been Palestinian. With the exception of a number of schools in the humanities, the Lebanese university mostly accepts students who have Lebanese citizenship. In other words, Palestinian refugees are not allowed to enroll in the schools of medicine, engineering, or even education.
I placed all my hopes in the Faculty of Engineering. When I was still in school, I was eagerly waiting for the day that I would enroll in it. Sadly, I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to for a single reason. I am Palestinian.
One step after the other, Mahmoud is building a future in which he is fully aware of his limited choices. His identity challenges his decisions and prevents him from having certain freedoms, such as choosing a specialization for his future career.
They really scared me about trying to enroll in the Faculty of Engineering, so I gave up hope. I started to look at private universities to see if I would be able to enroll in a faculty that I like in any of those universities, but I also couldn't. Finally, I didn't have a choice but to go to the Lebanese university, and my only choice was the Faculty of Business Administration.
The educational opportunities that Mahmoud and other Palestinian students have make them feel that choosing a major is not a personal choice that refugees have in Lebanon.
Palestinian university students are living through a real crisis. According to the established rules, they are forbidden from enrolling in science classes. In addition, their financial situation doesn't allow them to pursue the sciences because of the high tuition cost.
The opportunity to enroll in private universities is very limited unless the refugee has a high income. Otherwise, Palestinian students don't have a choice other than to seek higher education in the fields that are specified by the Lebanese government, since choosing their careers is not a right that they are entitled to.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.